Class today, like in the previous class, we have described what are the basic requirements for designing, what is site survey, what exactly we need to see. So today we are going to design a on-grid or a grid-connected solar power plant. But before starting, we need to understand what are the basic components we need to design in PVSYST and what are the components we can't design in PVSYST but we require it for completing the plant. This is a protection part. So guys, if you want, you can note it down. Arijit, when I will tell you, please take the snapshot. Okay. So we have already learned that what are the basic steps of site survey. I'm just repeating it today once. First, we are approaching a client asking for the bill, that is 12 months bill. Let's say, for example, we are getting it as 1,30,000 rupees. And we are considering 1 unit cost for that particular customer is 10 rupees per unit. So from here we need to find out what is the annual requirement of the customer. So the annual requirement we will be getting 1,30,000 divided by 10 as it's a unit rate. So it's 13,000. We already know 1 kilowatt peak plant gives us 1,300 units a year. So dividing this by 1,300, we are getting 10 kilowatts. So we are taking that we need to design a 10 kilowatt peak plant for today. So we are considering that we have went to a customer's house, we have asked for the bill, and from that calculation we have got 10 kilowatt. And we are designing for a state where 100% import can be equal to export, so that we can design the total 10 kilowatt. Fine. Now, considering this condition, what are the other things that we need to look? One, how rigid the roof is, that is the load bearing capacity that we have already discussed. We have got this as okay, great. Next, we need to learn lat long. So I am taking the latitude of a place, let's say 23.52, and we are taking height or the altitude of the particular house as G+2. So it's a ground plus 2 floor. Considering 10 feet as each floor, it will be 30 feet house, or a rough estimate of 10 meter. 10 meter is my altitude. So this is my latitude and this is my altitude. Please note it down. This will be our input parameters. Next, we have checked that the customer's house has a shadow free area enough to accommodate 100 kilowatt. So we are taking 120 square meter. The customer has a shadow free area. So it is enough. As per the thumb rule, we require 100 square meter. As we have 120 square meter, we are taking that it's enough. So this criteria is also okay for us. Last, we will check the south orientation. Let us take, just to complicate it a little more, we are taking that in this case, the azimuth or the south orientation is, let's say, 25 degrees. Right? So our roof is not at a particular south. This is our roof, and the azimuth, the south is 25 degrees. Clear? So this will be the input. I am again mentioning the input from the electricity bill we have got. We need to design 10 kilowatt plant. 100% is my input export. So we can design a 10 kilowatt plant. The load bearing capacity from the customer, we came to know that it can bear the load. From we have got the coordinates from our smartphone, the latitude and the height. We have, the customer has a shadow free area of 120 square meter where we require 100 square meter. So this is also okay for us. It's a visible site. And lastly, it has a south with an azimuth of 25 degrees. Fine. This will be the inputs we would be putting in a PVSYST design. Okay. And just for an example, we are taking a site at West Bengal. We are now taking one of the sites at West Bengal, let's say Kolkata. We will be designing the same site at West Bengal, Kolkata, right? Arijit, you can take the snapshot and share it for this page. Please take the snapshot. Okay, guys, if you have any question, you can ask me about this. Are the inputs. This is the site survey inputs that we are taking for doing a design. Chandra, for yesterday's class, the video is already shared in the chat box. You can check. Otherwise, you can contact Arijit. Okay. Fine. 1 and 2. Okay. First, we have got the electricity bill. From the electricity bill, we have came the annual consumption is 1,30,000. From that, we are taking 1 unit as 10 per unit. So 1,30,000 by 10 will give you 13,000 units annual consumption that customer is going. We are taking, as per our thumb rule, 1,300 units per year is 1 kilowatt peak. So dividing it with 1,300, we are getting nearly 10 kilowatt peak. We are considering that the export is equal to import, so we can design a 10 kilowatt peak plant for the customer. And load bearing capacity is how it is, like whenever we are putting the load of our module, our structure, is the roof well enough to bear that load? So that's the load bearing capacity. Generally, as we have discussed in the yesterday's class, it should be 20 kgs per square meter. If it is the case, 16 to 20 kgs, we can take it. You can say that it's okay, right? Now, first we will do the design without PVSYST. We will do all the components without PVSYST. We will do the design without PVSYST. We will do the design without the PVSYST part, right? So let's start. The first thing, the first design that we need to understand while designing it manually is, first we need to do the inverter sizing, right? So first the inverter sizing, and we are well aware, I'm just writing it, we are designing a 10 kilowatt peak plant with an azimuth of 25 degrees. This is my azimuth and my latitude is 23.5 degrees. Great. So for the inverter, it's very simple. We need to take a 10 kilowatt peak inverter. So in this case, we are going to take a 10 kilowatt peak inverter considering 100% feeding. Though 20%, 20 to 25% overloading is possible for any inverter nowadays, but generally in designing, we will try to take the same capacity. Yes, if like even if it's an 11 kilowatt peak design we were making, we would have taken a 10 kilowatt peak, was 11 kilowatt peak is not available and the next is 12. So there is no point of taking it extra. Okay, so the inverter sizing or the capacity, first we can decide from our calculation itself. So it's a 10 kilowatt peak inverter. Now, after taking a 10 kilowatt peak inverter, we need to decide the brand. So there are various manufacturers, for example, ABB, Power One, Grow Watt, Sun Grow, so on and so forth. There are various brands. So for this design, we are considering a Power One inverter of 10 kilowatt peak, right? So we would be designing a system with a 10 kilowatt peak Power One inverter. First, we need to ask for the data sheet from the manufacturer, or we can Google it down. So if I Google a 10 kilowatt peak Power One inverter data sheet, we are going to get this. This is a 10 kilowatt. I hope everyone can see my screen. Everyone can see my screen. It shows that there is like I am opening a data sheet of an Power One inverter of 10 kilowatt peak capacity. So we'll go to Google. We will only write 10 kilowatt peak inverter capacity. or otherwise we can ask it from the manufacturer. So you can see in my screen that there is a 10 kilowatt peak inverter that is there for power one, right? We have 10, 12.5, 15, 17, 20. So you can, from here you can see that all capacity, if you're even designing a 11 kilowatt, we need to go for 10 kilowatt. That's where the overloading comes. And even you can see from the first parameter, that is the maximum DC power. For a 10 kilowatt peak, a maximum DC power you can feed is 12 kilowatt peak. What I was saying, 20 to 25% overloading. So from DC side, we can overload it. So even for 12 kilowatt peak design, we can select a 10 kilowatt peak inverter. So there are a few parameters we need to note it down. First, we need to check the maximum DC power, what input power we can give. It is greater than 10 kilowatt peak or whatever we are designing. So this inverter is correct choose for us. Next, the maximum DC voltage. Till that voltage, it won't be damaged. But this is not the parameter we'll be looking for. We're looking for the third parameter, is MPPT voltage range, which is 250 to 850. Let me write it down and then we'll speak about it. MPPT voltage range is 250 to 850 volt. So what we are going to do, we are going to take this as a note for our designing reference. So let's note it down. Okay, so we have taken the, what does now the MPPT voltage means? This is a range within which if we give the input to an inverter, it will operate. That is, if we give the input to operate inverter in the input point as to between 250 to 850 volt range, the inverter would operate. Less than 250 or greater than 850, it won't operate in the manner it should be. But the question comes, would it operate? Now, let us check the data sheet again. In the data sheet, you can see that a minimum and a minimum start for DC voltage is given. The fifth column, which is given as 200 volt. So if we are giving even 200 volt, the inverter would start, but it won't operate in the nominal voltage range it should be. So we would be giving the inverter, we will be selecting the voltage of the system between 250 to 850. So this is the first thing we need to note, the MPPT voltage range. Next, the next thing that we need to note is number of MPP trackers and strings per MPP trackers. Here you can see the 6 and the 7, there is number of MPP trackers is 3 and the strings per MPP tracker is 2. Clear? Let us note it down. Number of MPP is 3 and strings per MPP would be 2. That means if I draw an inverter, if I design an inverter, our inverter will have 3 inputs. So from here we can give 3 inputs to our inverter. Fine. And how many strings we can design? 3 into 2, because in each MPPT we have 2 strings. So 6 strings we can design. Right? For every string means the number of modules we are putting in a series. So for each string, this voltage we should maintain 250 to 850. Right? Maximum strings we can use is 3. That's my input. The maximum number of strings we can use is 6, and the total voltage is, the range should be between 250 to 850. Fine. Let us check other parameters. The other parameters that we need to check from the data sheet of the power one inverter is what is the input current it can take to ensure that our string current should be lesser than the input current, or we are choosing the panel as per the input current. So you can see that the maximum input current it can take is 12 ampere. Below you can see the output. In the output you will find maximum is normal AC voltage, that is it will give an AC voltage output of 400 volt, and the maximum output current is 17 amps. Fine. Okay, so the input current that we can take is 12 amps and the output current we can take is 17 amps. Let us note it down. Input current should be 12 amps, output current should be 17 amps. Now it will be used in our two parts, where input current we need to use for module, selection of module, output current is for protection system. Clear? So module and AJB, that is array junction box, or the protection device we are going to put between module and inverter. For designing of these two we need the input current, and we need the output current 17 amps for designing the protection system after the inverter before the grid or the load. Okay, so here these 2 points is very important. Arjit, please take the screenshot. So just to brief, the inverter we are choosing, it should be of same or within 120% capacity of the design. We need to select inverter brand, then we need to take the data sheet. From the data sheet we require the MPPT voltage range, number of MPPTs, string per MPPT, input current it can sustain, and output current it will provide, and the output voltage. In this case mainly it's a three-phase inverter will always give output voltage of 400 volts. So there is nothing to worry about. You can take this as a thumb. For a three-phase inverter it will be 400 volts. Otherwise you can check it in your data sheet. Data sheet also have this. So this is your output voltage. Fine. Next step. First we have done the inverter designing. Next we are going to go and design the module. We need to select the module. Note this down, because what we are going to do is that we are going to do the same design in PVSYST. First we will do it manually, then we will do the same design in the PVSYST software. So now just to go ahead and check what we have got. We have got the input current from the inverter. We are now designing the module part, right? So we have got that we need to keep the range between 250 to 850 and the input current should be 12 amps. This is what we require, because from module we are getting the input, so we need not to think about the output in selection of a module. Now we have various modules. How? Generally the commercially used module is generally of 60 cell or of 72 cells. A 60 cell module design starts from 250 watt peak and it goes up to 275 watt peak. For a 72 cell module it starts from 300, goes to 335 watt peak, and after that we generally goes for monopark. Monopark is a monocrystalline. These 260 and 72 cells are polycrystalline. Monopark starts from 350 watt peak and goes up to 400 watt peak depending upon manufacturer to manufacturer. Okay, so here we can take any one. Generally we take the 72 cell, considering the efficiency of 72. Right? Here there is a basic trade-off. From where does this trade-off comes? We can choose anything between 250 to 325 watt peak, right? Now, just for an example, we need to design a 10,000 watt peak system, that's a 10 kilowatt peak system. If we take 250, we would be having 40 number modules, right? So if we are taking 250, we are getting 40 number modules. Whereas if we take 335 watt peak modules for designing a 10 kilowatt peak system, we are getting 29.8. 29.8 is not possible, we need to take 30. Okay? So now what's the difference? Here you can see that you are only designing for 10,000 watt peak, but whenever we are multiplying 30 into 335, you can say that you are paying for 50 watt peak more, but you are saving in structure, because for 40 modules the structure amount would be more than 30 modules. So it's prefer to go for higher range modules rather than lower range modules. Clear? So 335 we can choose if available in market, if not we can choose 330 watt peak. So for this example, let us take 335. We have chosen 335 watt peak. So the total number of modules we require would be 30 numbers. Now we have various manufacturers for modules, for example Shobha, Vikram, Adani, Luby, and if we go outside we will get Canadian Solar. We have multiple module manufacturing company. Here we are taking Adani Solar. We are considering Adani's module, so we would be taking Adani Solar 335 watt peak module. Similar to inverter, what we need to do is that now we need to ask for the data sheet. Two ways: we can Google it out, we can write Adani inverter, Adani 335 watt peak data sheet, or what we can do is that we can go ahead and ask from the manufacturer. So let's Google it out. Everyone can see, after Google we are getting this data sheet. This is a data sheet of a Adani 335 watt peak. Now I am showing you what I have told is 325. Adani is not making 320 to 300 to 320. They are starting from 325 to 345. So the data sheet of a particular range would be same. 325 to 345 is the data sheet. Right? This is the data sheet of 325 watt peak to 345 watt peak Adani module. Now what are the basic things we need to write it down? First we need to note, as we have told, VOC, ISC, IMP and VMP for a 335 watt peak module. So let's note it down. VMP is 37.25. So our VMP is 37.25 volt. VOC is 45.4. As we told yesterday that VOC is the maximum voltage. So you can see VOC should be always greater than VMP, always. Next is IMP and last is ISC. So let's check the value of IMP. IMP is 8.91 amps, and last we are checking as ISC, that is 9.58. Yesterday we have again discussed that it's the short circuit current. So the short circuit current amount will always be more than the maximum power we are looking for. So now our output would depend on these two parameters. That is, our output would depend on VMP and IMP, because the power is basically the combination of or the multiplication of VMP and IMP. On the other hand, I am putting the cross marks, that is a VSC and ISC. We would require this for designing our protection system. For designing our protection system, we require BOC and ISC, right? Now, the first question comes that we have 30 numbers of modules, right? How to connect? Yesterday we have discussed that the first step we are going to connect is through series. So we are going to connect 30 number of modules in series. But whenever we are connecting 30 numbers of modules in series, what is happening? The total voltage VT would be 30 into VMP. So multiplying 30 into VMP, that is 37.25, we are getting 1117.5 volt. This is not at all in the range of 250 to 850 of the inverter. So we can't put all 30 modules in series to the inverter. Fine? It's not possible for us to put all the modules in series to an inverter. The next step, what we are going to do, we are going to divide it by 2. So what we are going to do, we are using 15 modules in series into 2 strings, right? We can use 2 strings of 15 modules. So once we multiply 15 into 37.25, we are going to get 558 volts. So each string of ours have 558 volts. Matching? So each string has 558 volts, which is within the range, MPP range of our inverter. So in this case, we need to select 15 modules of 2 strings. So we have 2 strings, 15 modules each. That is 2 parallel lines of 15 modules each. Clear? Another point is, from here we can see the ISC is 9.58. That is, if any time there is any chance that the module, there is any damage or leakage, the ISC would go to 9.58 amps. So 9.58 is the maximum current that the series can produce. So we can see 12 amps, that is within the range. This is lesser, the ISC is lesser than the input DC current of the inverter. That means this module is okay to feed in the inverter we have chosen. Our selection of module and inverter is done. Fine. These two are the only designs or the only inputs that we can put in a PVSYST. Other like structure, protection system, we can't design in PVSYST, but we are going to learn it manually. These two are the inputs that we can design. Arijit, I would request you, please take the snapshot and share. In the meantime, I'm giving you the data sheet for Adani. You can just keep it for your reference. Okay. Now what we are going to do is that we need to now, as we have yesterday discussed, that except module, inverter and battery, as it's an on-grid system, battery is not required. So except module and inverter, everything comes under BOS, that is balance of system. Right? So now what we are going to do is that we are going to design the balance of system for this particular rooftop system. The balance of system just now, and ultimately we are going to make a BOM, a bill of materials. Like what are packing materials, what are the materials we are requiring. So now we are going to go for a balance of system, BOS. The first balance of system we need to do is module mounting structure. For module mounting structure, generally we have already discussed yesterday, I'm just briefing it today. HDGI, it will be hot dip galvanized iron, 85 microns. It is nothing but the layer of micron, like the layer of the hot dip galvanization that is basically put over the particular iron structure. So generally it is taken a HGI 85 microns. In few tenders you can get it to 120, 125 microns, right? Structure, as we know, for a small system we are going to go for a fixed structure. We are not going to go for an automatic tracker. Auto trackers cost very much, so we will only prefer it for larger systems of a ground mounted system. So here we will set fixed tracking, fixed structure with manual tracking. Like if we wish, we can change it manually, but we need not to do it automation, right? So generally, if this is my panel and this is my ground, we will be taking a two-leg structure. So this is how our two-leg structure will look like, and we'll have a civil foundation. We have already discussed it yesterday that the civil foundation should be M25 grade, that is 1:2:4. Okay, that is cement, sand and coarse material, 1:2:4. This is a civil structure that we are going to make to ensure that the structure doesn't flew off. Whenever there is thunderstorm, there are various news that the structure is flown off. This causes not only damage, it causes obviously it's an economical loss for the people who have already installed it, and even if its structure is flowing, it can like hit anyone on the roads and it can cause a damage to it. Okay, so this is a module mounting structure. Structure designing can be done in AutoCAD, which is not, though it's a mechanical design, we are not covering it in our course, but it can be done in a structure design. And house strength, like we generally tell we need a structure for 140 km/h. That is a wind speed that it needs to sustain. So we can design a structure, we can check the wind speed it can sustain in something called as STAD report. Clear? So the wind speed that it can sustain, we can check it from the STAD report. Next is the two protection system we are going to discuss. One is AJB or DCDB, as different people says. AJB is nothing but array junction box. DCDB is DC distribution box, right? And this comes between module and inverter. This is a protection device between module and inverter. And another is ACDB. ACDB is AC distribution box. It comes between inverter and meter or load, whatever you want to say. If you want to put it in load, it comes between inverter and load. If you are putting it in the net meter, it will be coming between inverter and net meter. Now we need to learn what are the basic parameters that we are going to cover in, like what are the basic components which is there in a AJB, right? Let me show you a AJB box. Now the major components, guys, you can see my screen, right? I am showing it in my paint. Now first we need to learn what are the major components of an AJB. First is the box. The box is basically the IP65 box. IP65 is basically a protection box which is dust free. 6 means it should be wet free, that if any rainwater anything happens it won't affect, and 5 means it's dust free. So it's basically protocol number 6 and 5. So it's IP65 box. It's a transparent box. There are various companies who make seats, for example TTL, Ensto and so on and so forth. So this is a box which should be there in case of both AJB and ACDB. Both has the box. In few cases ACDB can have a metal box if there is requirement. If you are putting it outside, if you are putting it outdoors, we can have a metal box. If not, IP65 is okay for dust and rainwater proof. If you need to put down the cost, you can even take IP54 transparent box. IP54 is a box which is only dust proof and rigid. It doesn't have waterproof or water jet proof. Like if rainwater comes, it will be damaged. So if you know, if you're using it as per indoor, Okay, we can use it. We have no problem. We can check IP54. The cost is lesser. But if we are putting it outside anywhere, it's better to take a IP65 box. Fine. Now, except that we need to have two protection. One is the current protection and one is the voltage protection, right? For current protection here we can use DC SPD or MCB, DC or MCB, DC fuse. If we use wish, we can use a DC fuse or we can use a MCB. For voltage we use SPD. SPD everyone knows is a surge protection device. SPD is a surge protection device. You can see that the photo is shared in the group in the chat box of the particular HAV we are talking about. So we have DC fuse or MCB protection for the current part and we have SPD protection for the voltage part. Obviously it's a DC current, so here the SPD will be DC SPD. On the other hand, for ACDB, same AC fuse or MCCB and it will be AC SPD. Fine. Now we need to understand how we need to calculate the current. The current for a DC SPD, like how we need to take the ampere rating, right? Now we will first do the design, then we will come how to go for the ampere rating of this and the voltage rating of this. You just know for this moment that SPD has three types. Type 1 protects less than 600 volt. Type 2 is 1000 volt and type 3 is greater than 1000 volts. Fine. So these are the three types of SPDs that we generally use. Type 1 less than 600, type 2 1000 and less but more than 600, type 3 greater than 1000. These are the three types of SPD we can buy from market. And whenever we go to a market, we need to tell what type of SPD we want to buy. So these are the SPD. Is a DC SPD or AC SPD and what type of SPD. This is what we can tell to a person from manufacturer from where we are buying it. SPD, there are multiple companies we all know. We have ABB, we have Schneider, we have Siemens, we have Eaton, we have Citel, we have Phonics. So there are multiple companies from where we can buy an SPD. And DC fuse is available in every electrical market. DC fuse, MCB and on. Fine. So first let us make a SLD or single line diagram. Then we would discuss the same. This single line diagram you can also draw in your AutoCAD. So it will be a part of your syllabus. So you need to draw a single line diagram in your AutoCAD. From AutoCAD we are going to basically show you a single line diagram, one drawing and one drawing as a module layout. We'll take a roof and we will show how a module layout is done. Right? We need to design it manually. Okay. Now let us do the design. We have already selected the modules. So we have, this is one series and this is another series, right? We have 15 modules each. Fine. So we'll be having two strings. Okay. This will have a current of 8.91 amps. This will have a current of 8.91 amps. Clear? So this here we have taken Adani modules, 335 watt peak. Fine. And this is what our rating is. From here we have already taken VMP as 37. I'm just writing a rough figures. VOC as 45. IMP as 8.91 and ISC as 9.58 amps. Clear? Next we have AJB, that is array junction box, where we have IP65 box. We have cables for interconnection. Obviously we have DIN rail, it's a type of rail where we put in the SPD and the fuse. We have DC fuse rating we will discuss, and we have DC SPD. Fine, these are the components. We have two input in AJB because we have got two strings, and we have two output from SPD. They are AJB. Still now it has 8.91 amps, right? This system till now, each string has a voltage of 558 volts. So here also we have 558 volts. Fine. No, we are not using 1 MPPT. We will be using 2 MPPTs. Yes, obviously we can use 1 MPPT, 2 strings, but we will be using 2 MPPTs. That we will discuss. Let me complete this. Then we will discuss why we are selecting even having 3 MPPTs, 2 strings, why we are selecting in this manner, and when we need to change. We will discuss that. Next, we are coming to as inverter. So this is our inverter. We have already chosen our inverter. It's a power 1 inverter, 10 kilowatt peak inverter, 250 to 850 should be our voltage. Input current should be 12 amps and output current can be 17 amps. This is my input voltage, and output voltage would be 400 volt. Clear? Obviously from inverter we are getting a single output. So our AJB has, we need to say it has 2 input, 2 output. In simple terms we tell it as 2:2 AJB, right? But inverter we will be getting 1 output. So what we are doing, in our inverter the 2 strings are getting parallel. Obviously when we are parallelizing it, it will be having a current of 2 into 8.9. So 8.91 into 2 is 17.82. It will give a output of 17 amps and 400 volt. Okay, it will ultimately give us an output of 17 amps. So you can see more or less our volt, the current is matching. After that we will be having a ACDB. ACDB will be 1:1, 1 input and 1 output. As we already discussed, we will be having IP65, we will be having cables, we will be having DIN rails, we will be having AC fuse or MCB, and we will be having AC SPD. Lastly, we will be connected to a net meter. We have already discussed about net meter in the previous class. So lastly, we are going to connect it to the net meter or our load. If you don't want to connect it to grid, we can connect it to our load. These are basically cables. So another component we are getting is cables. Fine. Now we need to learn what is the DC SPD fuse rating. As we can see that we have a current of 8.91 amps flowing in the circuit, and the maximum current that it can flow is 9.58 from the ISC value of the module. We can see in the circuit we can see we are getting 8.91 current flowing, and from the ISC we can see the maximum current that the module can deliver is 9.58. So any DC fuse rating greater than 9.58 or 10 amps is more than enough. We can select a 10 amp fuse. If not available, the next available rating is 16 amp fuse. So if 10 amp fuse is not available, we can go for 16 amp fuse, right? DC SPD, we can see here the DC SPD, the voltage that is running here is 558. 558 voltage is the system voltage. But if we consider VOC, so we need to multiply the VOC value, that is 45 into 15. So 675. Anytime if by any chance damage occurs by VOC, 675 volt system voltage can occur in the system. So we need to decide SPD greater than 675 volt. As I am again repeating, every protection system needs to be designed as per VOC and ISC, not as BMP and IMP. Because if we are taking VMP and IMP, that's the nominal current and the nominal voltage flowing. But it might be possible that due to damage, it can go to VOC and ISC. So the protection system should be designed above VOC and ISC. 675 I have got, you can see it here, 15, that is the number of modules in a string, into VOC. Here the VOC value is 45. If you multiply 45 with 15, we will get 675. Fine. So as we have already discussed, we have three types of SPD. Type 1 less than 600, type 2 between 600 to 1000, and type 3 greater than 1000. So here type 2 is more than enough. We would select type 2. Type 2 DC SPD DC fuse rating as 10 amps. Clear? Not required. Temperature coefficient of VOC won't be required because we are taking the range till 1000, right? So between 600 to 1000, the same SPD would be used. Even if there is a temperature coefficient, it won't vary too much. It can't go more than 1000. It can't be double. It can be a certain percentage. Obviously, that should be less than 10%. So more than enough for this design. Next, we are coming to the ACDV part. In ACDV, we are getting a current of 17 amps and a voltage of 400. So here AC SPD can be type 1 less than 600 and MCB should be 20 amps or 25 amps. Fine. This is the basic designing factors. Now we will come to the cable. In cables, what we need to check, till inverter, the cables we need to select is a DC cable. DC cables are always one core. If you are talking about DC cables, just hold on, let me clear the below space. Arijit, can you please take the screenshot and share it in the group? Then we will be discussing the cables. Fine. So what we are going to do is that now we are going to learn the other BOS. What are the other BOS that is there in our design? Just let me clear the below part. Fine. So now what we are going to discuss is the other thing we have left is cables. Here we need to use basically two types of cables. One is the DC cable, one is the AC cable. DC cable are always single core, one core, because it's a DC cable. Now, what should be the general square mm of cable we need to take? Here the current flowing is 8.91. So what will go is that, let us go to Google and ask for cable amperage rating. Every company like Polycab, KEI, whatsoever cable you are choosing, you will get a cable amperage rating. Write it for solar, because solar cables have a separate rating. Just hold on. Let me open it. Okay, from here guys, you can see that this is a cable chart, right? So it shows the second parameter here. In the cable chart is ampere, 15 amperes, 20 amperes, 30 amperes, 40 amperes, 55 and 70 amperes, right? And the next part is shown as what should be the core or the square mm of check-in, which is written near array amps, right? So if there should be a voltage drop, so if you are taking a 4 square, you can see a 4 square mm gauge. If you are taking a 4 square mm amperage current rating, you can see that the amperage current rating it can sustain is 10 from the chart. Rather, I'm showing a better chart. Just hold on. I'm showing a better chart. Polycab cable amperage. Okay. From here, you can see what is the nominal section that we need to select. Like what is the square mm of cable we need to select while designing, and what is the ampere capacity it can handle, right? From this chart you can easily see that there are, from the chart is showing two different columns of amperage, right? The first column is for copper and the next column is for aluminium. Now moreover, the first column is for a single core and the next column is for 3 core, 3.5 core, 2 core or 4 core or AC cable. In simple terms, the first column is for DC cable, the second column is for AC cable. So here if we check, our current should be within 10 amps, 15 amps, 0.75 square mm of DC cable is more than enough. But generally we do take DC cable as 1 core 4 square mm is the general, the minimum amount as per IEC standard. There is a IEC guideline that we need to maintain. So for DC, minimum should be 4 square mm. But as per our amperage rating, we can see 0.75 square mm is also more than enough. Fine. In AC, we are getting 17 amps. For 17 amps, here we can check 1.5 would be very near, 2.5 square mm. So we can take 4 core or 3.5 core. What's the difference? In 4 core, that is red, yellow, blue and neutral, or the core is of same size. In 3.5 core, red, yellow, blue are of same size, but neutral is a half sized core, because from neutral the whole current doesn't flow. It's only the return path. So we can take a 3.5 core, it reduces our cost. 3.5 core, 4 square mm cable, copper cable AC is more than enough for our design. So fine. Here, now the question comes, we can check two types. One is copper, one is aluminium. Aluminium costs are much lesser than copper. Copper has a better conductivity. That is why for DC side, we will be always using copper. But for AC side, we don't require copper. We can use aluminium. Yes, if it is tender specific, we need to use copper. Okay, so we can use the aluminium on the AC part to reduce our costing. Except this, the other BOS materials are the protection BOS materials. For simple example, one is the lighting arrestor. As we know, lighting arrestor is of majorly of two types. One is the conventional copper spike lighting arrestor, which has 3 spikes above, just like the Trishul. And one is the EAC type, electrostatic precipitator type. So EAC types lighting arrestor covers, like conventional generally covers a range of 10 meter radius, whereas EAC type is more than enough for 100 meters. So for larger plants, we prefer EAC type. It is a costlier one, like a conventional cost 1200 to 1500 rupees, a copper one with 5 spikes, whereas the EAC types cost nearly 22,000 rupees. So you can understand what's the cost difference. But yes, if we are talking about a 100 kilowatt peak plant, for conventional we need to give 10 or 20 numbers. whereas only one EAC would be suffice. So it's better to use a EAC type in case of LA for a larger plants. Otherwise, for smaller plants, like for this 10 kilowatt peak, we can select conventional, right? Lastly is grounding. So we need to ground the DC and AC grounding. We need to make an LA. Generally, DC1, AC1 and LA1 is enough. Tender wise, it can be DC2, AC1 and LA1. What is grounding? Whenever we need to take a GI strip or a cable from the structure to ensure there is no leakage current, and we need to ground it through any electrode. Okay, so for any grounding or earthing, the basic things we require is GI strip for earthing, the electrode, earthing electrode, it can be copper or GI as per requirement, as per costing, the earth electrode, and lastly the pit cover, which can be CI cover, cast iron or FRP. Okay, now we will go ahead and do a BOM, bill of material or bill of quantity. Let us do a BOM. BOM would come as particulars. We are not going for the costing part, that is not covered in the syllabus. So we are going to go for the particulars. What is the quantity required and what is the UOM? That is units of measurement. So we are going to first write down modules. AC DC earthing shouldn't be together, never. LA should have a separate earthing. If you are going for two DC earthing, you can interconnect the two DC earthing. But AC and DC should have separate earthing. Each earthing would have, for example, I'm showing it in this side. Let's say my earthing electrode, this is my earthing electrode, right? If my earthing electrode is of 10 meter, the difference between two earthing electrodes should be greater than 10 meter. The difference between two earthing should be greater than the length of the electrode we are using for earthing. I again repeating, the distance between two earthing should be greater than the length of the electrode we are using for doing it. If we are going for two DC earthing, we can interconnect it, but DC and AC shouldn't be interconnected at any cost, and LA should always have a separate earthing. It shouldn't be interconnected with anything, cause problem is in case of LA always we have an impulsive current. If this is a lightning strike, there will be a much amount of current. It should not hit the system. So LA earthing is different. AC earthing is called as the system earthing. DC earthing is called as the module earthing. So module earthing, system earthing is always separate as per IEC rule. As per IEC rule, it should not be done together. If it is asked in a tender, it might be tender specific, but as per IEC rule, AC and DC can't be together. Yes, inverter earthing should be different from DC. AJB module are like in case of earthing module, AJB structure will go to the DC earthing. Inverter being a AC component will go to the AC earthing. Only in few inverters where there is no internal SPD present. For example, Power One. In previous model of Power One doesn't have internal SPD. Nowadays they have SPD. So the previous model of Power One, in that case, we need to take a DC SPD from the inverter, DC earthing from the inverter 2, due to the absence of DC SPD. But most of the inverters have the inbuilt DC SPD, so we need not to do DC earthing for an inverter. AC earthing is more than enough. Modules: 335 watt peak, 72 cells, brand Adani. Quantity we have already noted down, 30 unit. UOM is numbers. Next is inverter, Power One, 10 kilowatt peak, 3-phase inverter, one number. Next is structure, HDGI, 85 microns. It is always in kgs. Generally, we have discussed it is between 45 to like 45 to 65 kgs. We are taking 55 as average, so 55 into 10, 550 kgs of structure we would be requiring. Next is AJB or DCTB. We have already learned it will be 2:2, and other parameters we have already learned. We would be taking it as one numbers. ACDB 1:1 would be one number. Cables would of three types. Why three types? One is DC, single core 4 square. One is AC, 3.5 core 6 square. Last is earthing. For doing this, we require earthing cables, right? For body earthing, we need to do the body earthing of each and every system. That is, we need to do the body earthing of an AJB, we need to do the body earthing of an ACDB, we need to do the body earthing of an inverter. Whatever equipment we are using, we would be doing a body earthing. That is 1 core 6 square mm copper flexible earthing cable. That's of yellow green color, or green color you can take. This is as per requirement. Next is LA conventional type, copper spike, one number. Next is earthing kit, which contains earthing electrode and earthing pit cover. That is 3 numbers. We are taking one each. And GI strip or cable for interconnecting as per requirement. Okay. There are a few smaller things too for like finishing up. There is ferrules. That doesn't come under designing. That's the costing part. So we are not going to go. This is what we require. So in our design, we would be only designing modules and inverters, and we would be adjusting the losses part to generate the report. This all can't be designed in PVSYST. It comes, we can design it in the SLD part, and you need to put it in the BOM. I would request Arijit to take the screenshot and share to the team. Team, if you have any questions, you can ask me. Arijit, you can, after sharing the screen, you can turn off the video. DC cable. DC cable, you can turn off the recording, please. So the DC cable is basically the part where we are interconnecting the modules, taking it to the AJB and AJB to inverter. DC cable, we need to check the amperage. In this case, we have got 9.58. So from the ampere rating that we have already shared, we can choose anyone, but IEC rule is minimum copper cable used for DC interconnection should be 4 square mm. So the minimum should be 4 square mm. Above, we can choose. So it's a single core DC cable, 4 square mm. It should be a flexible cable. Any other question, guys? This is basically a BOM or a bill of materials, or you can say a bill of quantity for 1000 kilowatt peak on-grid solar power plants. We are showing you a big solar power plant to understand each and every component, and this is the detailed BOM to make you understand better. But we are not giving you here the quantities. The quantities may vary as per depending upon the capacity. So this is without the quantity, but basically it contains of an items where it is divided into section wise: module section, inverter section, data logger section, structure section, and so on and so forth, with the specification what is required, the make, and the units of measurement. So first you can see is the module section where we have solar panels. Here specification is mentioned what type of panels we are taking. We are taking monocrystalline, polycrystalline, thin film, or monopark, and the make here is taken as Trina. After that, we will have the module mount panel mounting structure, that is the nut bolts. like the nut bolts through which the panels will be mounted in the structure. And next is the MC4 connector, where one panel is basically connected with the other. So these are the three parts of the module section. Next comes the inverter section. Inverter also has three parts. First is the inverter. You can, like in this case we are taking 10 numbers inverter of 100 kilowatt three phase. The make is Sungrow. So similarly, to mount the inverter, we require inverter mounting nut bolts. And if you are mounting the inverter, you don't have a wall to mount it, so you need to mount it outside in the roof. Then you need to prepare a mounting stand on a canopy so that it can be protected. Though inverters are IP65, that is well protected from rain, dust. But even though we will need to give it a mounting stand and a canopy, it depends upon where you are putting the inverter. Next, the data logger. Data logger is something where we need to basically you can remotely see how your system is performing from any computer, right? So here it has a data logger where it basically takes input data like DC input, AC output, wind, radiation, temperature sensors, and it has basically data logger have all the inputs to take in. But for inputs, you need to give sensors like module temperature sensor, ambient temperature sensor, radiation sensor, wind sensor. And if you are making it a Wi-Fi enabled, then you need to give it a SIM card, or if you are making it connected to a system, then you can give it RS485 cable. So basically here the data logger part, data logger is very important for remote monitoring, but for the other parts, you whether you require module temperature, ambient temperature, or wind speed, then only you need to provide that particular sensor, otherwise you need not to. Next is the mounting structure. Mounting structure, as we have already said, it is HDGI or hot dip galvanized, depending upon what we are using. Next is the hardware with which the structure is basically fitted in the ground or in the tin shed. Followed by the civil foundation. If it is a ground, we need to put an RCC civil on it. So we also need to take civil foundations into consideration with the threaded rod if we are going for RCC. If it's a PCC plain cemented structure, then we don't require this threaded rod. But if it's a reinforced cemented structure, then we would require a M10 threaded rod for the reinforcement. Module mounting structure, if we have both are shown. In the first case, we have in the from serial number 13 to 16, we have shown it for a rooftop or RCC roof, and for 17 to 20 we have shown it for a tin shed. So if it's a tin shed, we basically need to go ahead and do a tin shed module structure, which is generally monorail, and it's an aluminum structure, not an HDGI. In case of tin shed, we generally use aluminum structures. Rivets for connecting it, right? So here we can also give the fabricator name from where we are taking, or we can keep it as reputed vendor from which we are taking, right? This is the mounting structure part. The next part is basically the ACDB or the DCDB part or the meter part, right? If it's a big inverter like 100 kilowatt, it has inbuilt DCDB in it, so we don't require any input, any DCDB for the input to inverter. But in the output side, we require protection, so we use ACDB or ACCB, right? Next is the bidirectional meter. The solar meter, generally we take it as secure LNT. This meter basically indicates what is the amount of generation that is being generated from that particular system. Next is the cables. Here you can see we have talked about DC cable, AC cable, so on and so forth. But AC cable, if you are taking like 10 numbers 100 kilowatt peak inverter, right? So from inverter to ACCB, the length or the diameter of the cable would be different. But in case of from ACDB to the feeder, it will be again different. So you can see the AC cable in serial number 26 and 27 is basically subdivided. It is showing from one position to the other, like from inverter to ACCB, then ACCB to the feeder or the grid. So in inverter we are requiring 95 square mm because the current capacity should be as per 100 kilowatt, but as we are using 10 kilowatt to it, so the AC cable would be the main AC cable is 300 square mm. So the cable design, as we have already discussed, is basically depending upon the amperage or the current through with which it will move. Next is module to module earthing cable. It is basically done for doing module to module. generally done with 6 square green cable, green or yellow green cable. Same earthing cable for body earthing of any machine requires a body earthing. So if it's an ACB, or if you are using DCDB, or if you are using inverter, for every case earthing cable is required. This earthing cable for grounding purpose should be 16 square Next, the cables, basically the DC cable should not go naked. For that reason, we use HDP or UPVC pipe depending upon what the customer is asking for, and the accessories for it, that is L bend, T junction, T bend, junction points, saddle to fix the like the pipe UPVC or HDP to the particular wall or ground from where we are taking it. Cable tack is basically given on ferrules. Ferrules are given for DC cable. Cable tacks are given for AC cable. It is basically determined for which connection, what number of strings we are considering it, right? For this reason, the numbering ferrules or cable tacks are given. Glands are basically when we are putting in these cables to ACCB or grid, we require glands for the box. So this is for the glands for the cables. Lugs, we can't put direct cable to any junction point. For that reason, for the connection, we require different types of lugs. Here, if you are using 4 square DC cable, we will require 4 square lugs. Like you can see here, we are using 95 square 300 square This depends upon the AC cable sizing we are taking it, right? 16 square 6 square is basically for the earthing part. So the lugs also are required for the earthing part. Next is the protection system. As we have already discussed, protection system has lightning arrestor. The specification is basically given here along with the make, the earthing kit, the GI strip for the connection, insulator block through which the GI strip will do. Even we need to consider washer nut bolts. So any detailed BOM or bill of system should contain every component that we are using. So this is basically general terms. If you are not requiring it, you put the quantity as 0, but it's basically to make an elaborate BOM and then follow it. Okay, so even in that, except that we like washers, nut bolts, we have danger stickers. Like if you are using an inverter, danger sticker should be given so that people are aware that it's a danger component not to be touched. Next is the fire extinguisher. It is a must to be given in front of any AC components, especially inverter, with sand buckets. The same thing continues is basically accessories, a cable tray. If you are using it in a tin shed, so the cables can't go through pipe only. There should be cable trays for hanging the same. So this is the cable trays and different components of the cable trays. Walkways, if you are installing in basically in a tin shed, you can't walk throughout the tin, right? So walkways needs to be made. So this walkways also a part of that BOM. Handrail, if you are working at the edge of a roof, in the case of tin shed, handrail should be there for safety. So handrail installation is also a must. Last part is a module cleaning system. Automatic module cleaning system you can use. You can also keep pipe and hose pipe and water tap so that you can manually also clean it. But cleaning system should be there, which should help you to clean the module at least fortnightly for better generation. Last is the installation. For installation, you require screw, gitti, the installation team for working, transport charges, supervision engineer charges, civil foundation charges, zinc spray, sealant. So these are the basic parts we also need to consider in the costing. So bill of material is basically made to ensure that the costing we are doing is okay or not. Last is the licensing part. If you require any design approval from any government authority, or for net metering application, if you require net metering approval for like applying to the government and all, so net metering costing, the for costing for applying for a net meter, everything comes into the costing of the BOM part. After doing all the calculation, getting the total, you need to add GST and the profit to it to get the exact total amount, which is the costing for our particular system, right? So you can see in a detailed BOM of a rooftop system, we have 77 components in one. It might be the case that for a few projects, you might require only 20 or 30 components, but it's better to maintain this BOM and put the quantities as 0, which whatever is not required in your project, right? It is considered a good practice. And So we are done today with the grid connected rooftop system, where how we need to calculate it, how we need to do the BOM. In the next class, we are going to learn the design of a grid connected rooftop system without batteries, a grid connected system through PVSYST software, right? So that's all for today. You can keep these screenshots for making your BOM. And for our efforts, we would like you to like, share, and subscribe it to your friends, and share it to your colleagues, to your friends, so that more people can be benefited from this particular video. And the next class, we will tomorrow we will meet you again with the PVC's design of this same grid connected system. Thank you.